So let us look at fertilizers. We have just looked at ammonia. One of the things that perhaps I didn't mention in that presentation was that ammonia is very important. Some of the things that we use at home are actually products, so products that are made using ammonia. So in this presentation, we want to look at one of the things that we actually use in our gardens that we actually make from ammonia. Fertilizers, okay, fertilizers, I guess you have seen them being used, or you have actually used them in your farms. So what are these fertilizers? What are they made of? What are the advantages and disadvantages for the different types of fertilizers that we have, and things like that. So let's basically start. We use fertilizers for our crops to actually grow well, grow fast, and also give us very good yields. Okay, that is the interest that we actually have. That's why we are very much interested in making sure that we have these fertilizers, or we apply these fertilizers to our crops. Okay, so the plants basically need nutrients, and we have those that are actually needed in larger quantities. We can call them the major nutrients that plants need. We have nitrogen, phosphorus, and then potassium. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and then potassium, right? And then sulfur is also needed. These are important nutrients for our crops. Okay, so therefore they actually get these nutrients from the soil. Remember, we also talked about nitrogen, and we said that plants depend on nitrogen fixing bacteria for them to have access to that nitrogen, and that nitrogen is actually very important for their growth, right? So that nitrogen is actually mainly obtained as nitrates. The phosphorus is actually also obtained by these crops as phosphates. Okay, so those are the forms that the plants will actually need for them to be able to use these nutrients. Okay, so these nutrients can be availed to these crops as fertilizers. So fertilizers can be made in two ways. Those that we actually make from the industries, the ones that you actually go to the veterinary shop and buy, those ones are actually synthetic fertilizers. We can call them artificial fertilizers. And then we have the organic fertilizers. These are the ones that you actually make from home, or even in the garden, on your farm. Okay, you use the cow dung, the urine, and things like that to make these organic fertilizers. We can actually call them organic manure. Okay, so the organic, we start with the ones that are made, the artificial fertilizers. These ones are made with the knowledge behind the concentration. Okay, the concentration of the nutrients that you actually need for particular types of crops. Remember, the crops actually don't need the same quantities of these nutrients, and they also don't need the same type of nutrients. We have those that may need more phosphorus than nitrogen, and then we have those that need more nitrogen than phosphorus. So that means that when you have synthetic fertilizers, or what we are calling artificial fertilizers, you are able to buy what you actually need for your crops. Even the soil where you're planting your crops, that soil may be rich in phosphorus but deficient in nitrogen. So that means that when you go and buy these fertilizers, you know what you're buying, and also you know what you're buying in terms of quantities and you're actually buying something that you really know that your soil is deficient of. Okay, so they are actually more soluble. That means that the plants can easily absorb them and actually use them. Okay, so we have ammonium sulfate, ammonium phosphate, potassium nitrate, and liquid ammonia as some of the artificial fertilizers that we have. So what are the advantages? Some of the advantages I've already mentioned them. We said that they are soluble. That means that they are readily available to the plants or the crops, and you also need to apply little quantity because they have a lot of there's a high concentration of these nutrients, so you don't need to apply a lot for these crops. Okay, and then you basically know what you're buying because you know the crops that you have and what major nutrients do they need, or you know the kind of soil that you have and what major nutrient is deficient in that soil. Okay, but eventually you also get high yields if you use them appropriately. The challenge is that they can change the soil pH. Soil pH is about the degree of alkalinity and acidity of the soil. So if you use these fertilizers excessively, you will definitely change the pH of the soil, and most likely the soil will become acidic. Okay, but also the application of these fertilizers is not something that would be encouraged because of the long-term impact on the soil health. Okay, and then they're also expensive to produce. And the likelihood of pollution is also high with these artificial fertilizers. If these artificial fertilizers are washed into water bodies, you can have what we call eutrophication. Okay, these fertilizers get their way into water bodies and cause disproportionate growth of some of the plants, and then this can increase what we call the oxygen, biological oxygen demand, and that can cause death of some microorganisms. Organic fertilizers, what we make on the farm using the waste products. It could be the cow dung, cow droppings, chicken droppings. It can be the urine. It can even be the human excreta. This can be used to produce these fertilizers. Okay. Of course, this manure has to go through certain processes. That is, in its production, you need to make sure that you maintain temperature. You can cover them, they decompose, the bacteria act on them very well, such that these nutrients are actually released. The advantage is that, of course, it is much more better for the soil. You don't disrupt the soil pH that much. You don't disrupt a lot of these ecosystems. So that means that it improves soil health. That is the texture, water retention, and other. It improves also the microbes, which we have talked about in terms of ecosystems, because you're not disrupting the soil. It's inexpensive, and the nutrients are being released steadily. That means that you don't excessively apply these nutrients to crops and to ones, right? The disadvantages is that you may not really know the quantities you're supplying, so you may not know whether the crops are actually getting the nutrients that they are deficient of. Some of the pests can be harbored in this manure, but also requires a lot of effort and a lot of quantities to make sure that you get what you actually need. So it requires a lot of time and a lot of effort. Yeah, so this biogas can be used for lighting, it can be used for cooking, and then a number of things that may require electricity. Okay, so in this presentation, we have looked at fertilizers. We have those that are man-made, and then we have those that are made from natural means, from cow dung, from the droppings, from the wastes, the organic wastes that we can be producing at home or even in the farms. We have noted that producing these organic fertilizers requires a lot of effort. It requires you making sure that the composite or this manure is actually well covered and the temperature is okay, such that the microbes can actually do the decomposition of these to release these nitrates. When they are applied, they of course have long-term impact on the soil, but generally they maintain the soil properties, including improving on water retention and making sure that the microbes of the soil are not completely disrupted by this organic manure. Okay, and then the biogas, which we can use for different purposes. Thank you.